Hello and welcome to Critters and Cultures, the podcast where we explore the fascinating intersection of animal welfare and cultural diversity. I'm your host and veterinarian, Dr. Azalia Boyd, ready to uncover how our cultural differences influence, enhance, and sometimes challenge the way we care for animals and relate to each other. Join us on this journey through global traditions, learning from diverse perspectives, and advocating for empathy and respect in all our interactions. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Critters and Cultures. If something resonates with you today during our podcast, please feel free to send me a direct message, comment below, and or join our Critters and Cultures circle. Today we have an incredibly special guest who brings a unique blend of experiences to the table. Dr. Turnera Croom has served in the Army Veterinary Corps. She is a trailblazer as a woman of color in veterinary medicine and now focuses on holistic pet care and innovation in telehealth solutions. We're going to be diving deep into her journey. Dr. Croom, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. It is wonderful to be here. Fellow TU grad, Tuskegee
That's right,
in
baby.
the house. Okay. And so I'm so happy to be a part of your inaugural podcast, one of your first guests. And kudos to you for taking the time to put something like this together to represent not only yourself, but other Black veterinarians out there that need a space to shine. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And I feel special doing this, but I also, and not to get too sentimental, but I also just feel like connecting, if I never did this podcast, I probably would just continue to watch your amazing work on LinkedIn and never reach out. So it's giving me an opportunity to really meet amazing people such as yourself. So I definitely appreciate that. So let's dive in. I want the audience to get to know you immediately. I want them to know something about this Dr. Croom, maybe that they didn't know before. So I'm going to start with an icebreaker question. You weren't prepared for this question at all. And you probably aren't prepared for a lot of the questions that we'll be asking today, but it's all good. We're just having a chit chat. Tell us about you. My icebreaker question is, what is something from your childhood or early life that has a lasting impact on who you are today?
So many great things in my youth and childhood. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for raising me like you did. But I will say, just to jump right in so you can get to know me, in the 8th grade, had a science project to do, and I chose to do a white rat maze project. Now, both of my parents are educators. My dad teaches the natural sciences and the biologies and the earth sciences. So we automatically, I am like a little him. And he helped me put together the maze, hammer and nails, putting the maze together. We procured the white rats and we proceeded to, carry on, the hypothesis and the whole science experiment. Got an A on that, as I did most of my science projects growing up.
Nice.
And it was wonderful, right? And my mom really, she had some issues with having the rats there, but it's science, right? What could she really say? He's going against me and my dad. That's a tough duo right there.
Okay.
But so we were able to do it. But at the end of the project, I wanted to keep the rat. And my mom was, at that point, she was like, oh no. Because as you know, most people, even if you were an animal lover, rats, that kind of bridges the gap there.
Right.
And she obviously had reason to, because one day I was playing with the rat on the sofa. There's one of those old-timey knit sofas. The rat dug his nails into the back of the sofa and started climbing down the back. So, of course, I grabbed his tail. And what did I wind up with? Just the tail. That's right. The rat got away, was running around the house. At that point, my mom put her foot down. We had to put out the rat traps, and my little, Ben was caught. But right there really says a lot about my upbringing, the science background, the educators, and it was just an amazing upbringing. Absolutely.
Yeah, that is a hilarious story. I think I could listen to that story 100 times, and I'm sure there's more details that you have about the story. I cannot imagine you as a child with a rat tail in your hands and how devastating that must have been. for you, your mom, and poor Ben. Okay, that is hilarious. Well, that is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story with us. And obviously, with your dad being who he is in the sciences, this led you to a career in the sciences. You said you always really made good grades, and you were obviously intrigued by even rodents, right? And so there you were. You decided to go to vet school. But what I find extremely fascinating about your path that many veterinarians and people in the animal industry, period, have no idea about is the Army Veterinary Corps, right? I'll share a quick story with you. In my family, there was always this stigma around joining the Army. Some fear, some hesitation. My parents, like, even if I wanted to join ROTC, they just were like anti anything for me joining the military. And I think what I remember hearing in my household growing up was the historical context for Black people to serve in the Army. There's like this deep rooted, or any military institution, there's this deep rooted history of distrust between communities of color and institutions like the military, along with other institutions as well. But for them, I always remember them saying, like, you're not going to fight somebody else's war that you don't know anything about, right? So I just always stayed away from any of the institutions in the military. So today I am so inspired to live vicariously through you, through how you got to be, in the industry, in the field of the Army. And, as an adult, I have so much respect for individuals who have served this country in that deep way. And I'm looking forward to hearing the experiences, and also thank you for your service, right? So share with us what inspired you to join the Army Veterinary Corps. How has that shaped, how did you even get into that as a career?
So many things went into it. And like you said, there were those hesitations that I know about and grew up knowing about within the Black community, right? We are already considered to be tamped down, and now we're going to join an organization that is also looking to maybe wreak havoc on other countries. Like, why do we want to be a part of this? And so within my family, and my parents being such an integral part of the civil rights movement, that is the case. So I totally feel you. But I have a lot of uncles, especially on my mom's side, who were active duty in the military, had a lot of respect, carried a lot of respect with them around that. And it's still present today. I still feel a lot of pride having gone in. But to answer your specific question about what really got me in
Yeah.
was that third year of veterinary school at Tuskegee, where Colonel Nathaniel Powell came in to talk to our class. And, to use your word, he was a distinguished gentleman. He came in just zooted and booted, is what they say, right? Just, fully decorated, knowing that he was a veterinarian, African American, handsome gentleman. I was like, I want to do that. I want to look like that. I want to have a job like this where I could travel and move around, and I still get to work with my animals. This is exactly what I wanted to do. So I can thank Colonel Powell for that, for introducing me to that, and Tuskegee as well for bringing him in.
Oh my goodness, that is amazing. So I'm sure in him you saw parts of your dad, parts of your uncle, parts of your family, so it's almost like it was destined, for you to go in this path. I mean, your third year of vet school, you're almost finished, right? 1 year left, and you were like, this is it. That's the distinguished. That's how I want to look. That's what I want to do. And I love that. I love that for you. So
Yes.
you and I spoke before about this, but once you got into it, you were jumped and pushed straight into leadership, right? What Maybe before we even talk about leadership, tell the audience, what does a veterinarian in the Army Veterinary Corps even do?
Yes. you're right. A lot of people don't know about that. And I typically come across people who have never heard of
Yeah.
veterinarians in the Army at all. But the vet corps is divided into really two parts. One, you can either be a veterinarian that works as a clinical veterinarian at the base vet clinic. So you're right there on the base. You're taking care of your fellow soldiers' pets, and you also have a food safety aspect. So with food safety, a lot of people also don't know that we are required to look at the meat and the vegetables that are coming into the base, make sure that it's safe and sound for the troops. And in wartime, we go over before the troops to make sure that there's again fresh food and meat, and that there are no foreign animal diseases. That's a huge part of
Wow.
our time as a veterinarian in the Army Vet Corps. But the other side, which is the side that I went into, was
Yeah.
on the research and training side of the house. So I was located in the main hospital. We had a little vivarium section, and where we had a lot of pigs,
Wow.
ferrets, and a few other animals. We had goats as well. And so I and my team of veterinary technicians, we would facilitate training for the Air Force doctors that would come down from the hospital so that they could practice laparotomies and different
Wow.
surgical procedures. We used pigs a lot because, as you know, Doc, pigs are very similar to humans in their body systems and organs and everything. So they would come down, we would have the pigs strapped up on this high tech, all the high tech stuff you would see in a human hospital. Pigs had it. Beepers, I don't even know, all the
The
machines
monitors and
that would just
everything.
beep, monitors. Exactly. And so they would practice these things, and then at the end we would humanely euthanize them.
Okay.
And so that's what we did. We put on a training called ATLS training, which is Advanced Trauma Life Support. All the Air
Wow.
Force surgeons needed to be recertified in that every couple of years. So we would put on those trainings. We would have those
Wow.
mannequin dummies, and they would be there as well. So that's a really exciting aspect of veterinary medicine in the Army Vet Corps that a lot of people are unfamiliar with. And I love talking to them about it.
Wow. That is amazing. My mind is going to like, people who have different opinions on research animals. Did that ever bother you? So I'll just repeat. So my mind is initially
Okay.
going straight to like the research animals and how some
Oh,
people have ethical, considerations and debates about, using research animals. Not to go too deep into it, but did that
yeah.
ever bother you, or did you see it as like a greater good for what you were doing for the country?
I definitely saw that way, and not even only just to the country, but for the animals themselves. And this is one of the things that I train the students in my internship program. And it's that in lab animal medicine and research, the research I'd like to say is going to happen anyway, whether we're a part of it or not. Like the research is entrenched, as you know, even before a
Yeah.
medication comes out. We're legally required in this country to do testing with animals, and so it's more so like the research is going to be done. How are how can I, as a veterinarian, still be an animal advocate? So one of those
Beautiful.
ways is to be able to stand up for that animal and say, hey, we need to stop doing this research. You've injected this formulation into this rat, and now the tumor that it created is bigger than the rat. We have to stop. And so that's
Yeah.
another reason why I say, as a veterinarian, especially in the Army Veterinary Corps, you cannot be a wilting wallflower. You have to be able to stand up, not only for yourself, but for those animals and still be an advocate for them. So I definitely felt like it was for the greater good.
For the greater
Um,
good. I love
the
that and I
research.
appreciate you for that. Now, you
Yes.
also mentioned veterinary technicians. I know that some of the listeners are like, oh, veterinary technicians can be a part of this. Can you give us just a little glimpse on where did the veterinary technicians come from? How did they get involved? Were you like super involved with them?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't even think I knew very much about veterinary technicians within the Army before I
Yeah.
went in. But yeah, there's a whole, I think it's 91 Tango, it's got to have an acronym for everything, which are the veterinary technicians. And they are also within the Army, just like the veterinarians are within the Army Veterinary Corps.
Right.
And then I also worked with Air Force because I was stationed on an Air Force base, and they have airmen. And so the veterinary technicians would help with the actual animal care and their,
Yeah.
environment and all of that stuff, where the Air Force airmen were like the scrub techs. So once we got into those surgical procedures, we each
They
had
were
our
there.
own role. And it was very exciting to be able to work with those tangos and to be able to guide them. And like I said, in the military, we're responsible not only for just that vet tech, we're responsible for their entire family. So if something's going on within the family, we as the officer have to take care of it and insert ourselves sometimes into that. So
Yeah.
it's very much the rules and the following these regulations and who salutes whom. It's really regimented.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
So you had to take care of animals. You had to take care of and animals that, are not the normal companion animals, right? On that research side. You had to advocate for them, but then you also had this huge responsibility from what it sounds like you're saying of taking care of the families, the soldiers' families and advocating for them. How how did you do that? How did you look after every aspect of the soldiers' lives and the animals' lives? And how did that shape your understanding of what it truly means to lead a team?
Oh my goodness.
That is a lot.
It's
It's a lot of
it,
balancing. I mean, it's hard
it
for
is.
me as a civilian veterinarian in a clinic, right? But how did you balance that?
I it wasn't always the easiest thing. I had to really rely on the leadership that I had gained from my parents and my upbringing. A lot of people kind of assume, they're like, oh, okay, you're a veteran, you were in the military. That's where you got your leadership. I say, I got that leadership and strength and confidence,
Mm,
from my mother, Gertrude
yeah,
Croom. And then from there, school at Xavier University in Louisiana, Tuskegee University in
yeah,
Alabama, all, created this leadership within me. Then when I got into the military, I was able to have that strength and have that backbone and be able to get in there, because here's the funny thing: when you come in as an officer, you're supervising immediately enlisted not officers, but enlisted soldiers who, you supervise, and you, um, what's the word I'm looking for? I already said that you're responsible for their entire lives,
yeah.
but one of the things is, and I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. God,
That's
darn
okay.
it.
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm going to start a sentence over so that we can
Okay.
cut
Yeah.
there. Um,
I could also ask the question differently
oh,
because I
um,
think that was a hard question.
I mean, maybe. Okay,
Let me
let's try
ask this
that.
one. Let me ask this question. So you were responsible for soldiers, for animals, and that, I mean, at such a young early stage in your career, you said that you had a great upbringing and you had leadership skills instilled in you from very early. That obviously helped, but what advice would you give to someone who suddenly finds themselves in a leadership position, potentially maybe before they feel ready?
That's a great question, and that's exactly how I felt. And so, what I would say as some advice would be to, stick to your basics and your values and your morals. Because if you were raised like I was, to treat everyone as you would like to be treated, then you're going to go
Yeah.
in with a level of humility that doesn't allow you to say, oh, well, I'm an officer and you are enlisted, so do what I say. Oh no, we go in with that strength. Yes, we're the leader. Everyone knows we're the leader. You don't have to say you're the leader. They
Yeah.
already know who to salute and how things work. A lot of times they were in the military for 8, 9 years before I even got in. So I'm here for like 30 seconds. They've been here for 9 years. You have this new officer, so they've been through officers, right? And so you get
Mm,
this new officer coming in with no level of humility. So I would say stay humble. Stay
mm,
humble, continue to learn. Remember that every day is continuing education, and never feel like you're better than anyone else. I was blessed to have the background and upbringing that I had and the schooling that I had, but I never take it for granted. I never
yeah,
take it for granted. So
that is
grateful.
that is beautiful. Humble leadership, right? And I think when we had one of our initial chit chats, you mentioned to me that you, in the future, plan to do a TED talk on humble leadership, right? So, what's a moment in your military career that really tested your humility? How did you grow from that experience?
Oh my goodness. So I was in there probably at least for a good 6 months. And I was, getting my groove on. Everybody was gelling. People were like, Captain CJ, come to the back. They really loved me. I knew
Yeah.
where the professionalism had to happen. And then you also wanted to be able to be laid back too. So everything was going smoothly. There were also, I didn't even mention, some civilians. So there were
Okay.
a couple of civilians in the building who, one was on the janitorial staff, a young man, older gentleman. And one weekend, I got a call, and it was him. He was in jail, and something had happened within his family, and he was in jail. And so I don't know what I was thinking in my young 22-year-old mind, but
Wow.
I heard it, I got the call, and then I think I went on about my weekend. So then on Monday, I got reamed out by my lieutenant colonel, who was like, "You don't let anyone in our family, right? Whether it's civilian, whether it's military, go without knowing that there's somebody there doing something, working for them." He should have been out of there. And so I
Yeah.
still think of that almost 20 years later,
Wow.
that I should have got him out of that jail, or talked to him, or gone to visit him or something. So that was really kind of, got me back to where I really should be, which is that
Yeah.
no one is better than anyone else.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you learned from that. I wonder what was going on that weekend for you. You were probably like, look, I got things to do this weekend. This is going to have to wait till Monday morning.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah, it's something to be said about that lesson, especially when it comes to leadership, right? You're teaching a lot of people that are listening right now really critical skills when it comes to defining what a real leader is, what a true leader is humility. It's being a part of the family of your community, right? And almost like no man left behind, right? So this we get so caught up in this hierarchical system of I'm here and you're here, and as you said, you salute to me, but really bringing everything down to we are all individuals, we all have needs, we all need to be heard, we all need to be respected. And so I love that. And I want to say today, I won't say that today, I won't say the date today, but I will mark this date down. I would love to see that TED Talk on humble leadership. I think we would learn a lot from you on that.
Thank you.
So let's get into a little bit about kind of what you're doing now, right? So you went from Army Veterinary Corps and now holistic pet care and telehealth innovation type stuff, right? I think now you told me we're doing raw feeding and herbal therapy and chiropractic services. What drew you to this approach, and how do you what drew you to this approach?
I like to get to the root of things. I like to really get to the heart of things. And so within veterinary medicine, a lot of times traditional veterinary medicine is reactive. And of course, if someone comes in with their pet, something's already going on, and so we have to react. But
Yeah,
with holistic medicine, we try to focus more on prevention and wellness and allowing the body to heal itself. And so
yeah,
that's what really drew drew me to it. I like to get to the root of the problem and not just the symptoms, you know. So
Yeah.
holistic medicine, I try to be as holistic as I can for my own self.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of my clients do come from because they're holistic in their own kitchens and for their families. And as we know, pets are part of the family now. So that's really how I got started.
What about telehealth? How did you get started with that? And tell us a little bit about your telehealth program.
Okay, well, I always call myself a veterinary entrepreneur. If somebody's like, "Oh, what do you do?" You know, I'm like veterinary entrepreneur because I believe it encompasses all the things
I
that we
love that.
veterinarians might want to do. We're not limited, and I love that. You know, different from our human medical compadres, we
Right,
have
right.
so much more latitude to like get into these different specialties. And so, you know, a couple years ago, you won't say what year it is, but there was some type of medical situation that happened in the world. And everyone was, you know, in their homes for quite a while. And I was like, maybe I should start doing my virtual visits a little more. Because I actually had virtual visits and they weren't really taking off too much. You know, it was kind of like,
Yeah,
a person here or there. Mostly we would go right to their homes as I'm a mobile veterinarian.
yeah,
But during that time, I was in this room in my house and I was like, I need to be talking to these clients over the video. Like all my knowledge, it's still here,
yeah.
and I can share this, and they can tell me exactly what's going on. And I would say that me starting that telemedicine and really expanding my telemedicine aspect of my business really allowed me to go even deeper into how I listen to my clients,
Wow.
how well I listen, how I make sure that I'm, you know, not talking over them, how I make sure that I'm giving myself time to take in what they're saying and not just so ready to talk. All the things they teach us about great communication in general,
Right.
but just within this, where you know their main worry is about their baby, to be able to listen. So telemedicine really did that for me. And so I'm so glad in a way it really burgeoned my business by having that situation where everybody was inside for a while and it allowed me to get into their homes and get into their hearts like we veterinarians so often do.
Without even being in their homes, right?
That's
Without
right.
even being
That's
there.
right.
And the virus that you don't want to mention is still lingering. It's still happening. Things are still going on with that virus. But that is beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing that. You know, there's a lot of talk about telehealth right now. You know, there's a lot of debate about whether it should be used and not used and all of the disadvantages. And you have some talking about the advantages. I've always seen telehealth as a tool, right, to support families. And because of my work in access to veterinary care, I think that, you know, having the option for telehealth where some families have no options at all to get to the veterinary clinic, having a telehealth option helps bridge that gap, right? That access to veterinary care gap.
Yes.
And people have been doing this in human medicine. You know, the industry has been doing this in human medicine for years, right? So it's really, yes, there's some pitfalls, but I actually support 100% what you're doing, the clients that you're able to reach, and you're kind of going against the grain, right? Which I also love, right? Because you're like a rebel. You're a rebel in this. But you going against the grain because you're in a space where not everybody agrees. It's very easy for people to get comfortable in a space where everybody agrees. Everybody agrees with veterinary clinics. Everybody agrees.
Yep.
But with you, not everybody agrees with telehealth. Not everybody agrees and supports holistic care. So I just commend you for finding your niche, following those dreams, and supporting the clients who so desperately need you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's great to be able to do something that you love and to be able to follow your heart and still
Yeah.
be able to make a living and even a great living at it, you know?
Yeah.
one of the things we've talked about my military career, but I am a service disabled veteran, and my business is designated as that. We're a service disabled veteran owned business. So I also, in addition to maybe those people in the rural areas who can't get out and different things like that, are the people who are disabled. I think there's different abilities, I think we call it, not disabling anymore, have different abilities,
Yeah.
and they're pets that have different abilities as well. I focus on senior pets a lot. And as
Right.
you know, they have some different needs. They can't always get in the car. So why should they be limited from receiving this excellent care that I provided, or excellent care that you provide, just because their pet parent who might be 80 years old and maybe unable to pick up their, German Shepherd dog? Why shouldn't they be able to receive that care?
Yeah.
So I think the main thing here, and again, one of the things I teach my interns, is the difference between telemedicine and telehealth. Those are two different things, all under the same, kind of broad category. The telemedicine is what I do here in my state of Michigan, where I am licensed and I am able to follow the rules of my state and make sure that I've seen the animal, have put my hands on the animal, and that allows me to provide telemedicine for those clients who I've seen their animals in real life. I hold walk-in clinics every quarter for
Wow.
those people who, again, maybe just need the individual vaccination or individual things and maybe don't need my full services. So telemedicine, that's the medicine, that's being able to be licensed, that's being able to provide the pharmaceuticals and, those kind of things. Because even though I am a holistic vet, I am also integrative. If an antibiotic or a steroid is needed, we need to zap something, we are going to use that. We are not going to be over here putting rose petals onto the wound, hoping that
Right. Right.
And so the other side of that is telehealth. So that is something that honestly, you don't have to be a veterinarian to do.
Yeah.
You're providing, consultation, and there's different ways to get around it, but anybody can get on and talk about the health aspects of herbs for animals, right? But
Right.
of course,
Right.
I'm bringing all of my veterinary education into that. So I teach my students, my interns, the difference between telemedicine and telehealth. This is also a way to protect your license by
Right.
knowing the difference. I've got a really big new program, actually, that's a telehealth program that's allowing me to help pet parents nationwide
Oh.
with my holistic care. Yes, so
Oh,
I'm very
well, I want
excited
to get
about that.
into that, but before we segue into that, as a holistic veterinarian, if there was one herb that you say this is my favorite for majority of things, this has to be in my clinic. I hear a lot about CBD. I hear a lot about turmeric. I hear a lot about coconut oil.
Right.
What is a good, and this is not for anyone to start to, use it and try to heal their own dog on certain things, but what's something that you have to have stocked in your clinic?
Yes. Well, one of the biggest things that we deal with, not only for my senior pets, but for any animal, is anxiety and stress. Anxiety and stress. It can affect so much of the body. So
Yeah.
there's an herb combination that's called Shen Calmer. It's made up of about 16 different herbs. So I don't really have a per se a favorite herb unless it's something that can calm and soothe. So, things like chamomile, lavender can be
Yeah.
used safely with pets. You got to really be safe with those, especially when you're talking about the essential oils and things like that. But herbally, Shen Calmer, it flies off my shelves because
Wow.
there are so many anxious pet parents and therefore pets. I'm sure you've seen it where you get a pet parent and a pet, you're like, I see why the pet is anxious because the pet parent is, super anxious and nervous about
Yeah.
something. And so I would say Shen Calmer
Kind of
is
a
the one I
go-to for
can't do
you.
without. Yeah, I even use it for my own dogs. I'm like, is this for humans too? Okay.
Right, that's what I was
Yes.
gonna say. You're gonna start dosing it a little bit for the pet,
Right.
a little bit for the pet parent. Listen, you guys take this before you come into the clinic today. Both
That's
of you,
right.
right? Both of you. So
That's
tell us
right.
about, I think that is awesome. And I think that there are some listeners who want to know more about this internship program because you also, as I said in the beginning, you are a trailblazer, not only as a woman of color, but in the industry within veterinary medicine. And people want to learn from you. And one of the things that was so striking about your internship program was the fact that in part, or maybe in full, you let me know, that there's a virtual option. So who are those that are coming to your internship? How can they find you? Tell us about the program.
Yeah. In full. So it is a completely telemedicine internship. So
Wow.
this is really what allows
Oh my God.
me and allows those students to really just join me. Anytime, almost anytime. Technology really can bridge that gap for animal welfare and for the training of the next generation, which is what I want to see. And I know that you're doing as well with your podcast here. Um, I would say that the program is focused on college age and above, students that are in school, actively going towards, animal science, pre-veterinary, something within, focus on the veterinary world. I've even had some that were going to into vet tech school, I try to be as inclusive as possible, but I do want to make sure that they are in school at the time so that I can make the most impact. They come into the program, they do an application, they tell me about themselves. And I mean, essentially they're in. Like, I'm not like, who am I not going to allow in? I make sure that they're, like I said, in school. But what they do is they join me on my actual virtual calls.
Wow.
So I make sure that the client is, okay with having interns on their call. And then they jump right in with me. My veterinary assistant will post our cases beforehand. We'll say, okay, oh, we just got a virtual visit in. It's at 10:30 tomorrow morning. Like, anyone who can come in and join us, come on and join. She'll put the case. What do you think about the case? They'll be right in the chat, like boom, boom, boom. Have you
Oh, that's
tried this? Have they
awesome.
tried this? Have they tried this? And then some can come. Some might be at work and can't join. We make it really open and just flexible and easy for them to come in and join and learn. And one of the best things about this is not always just the actual cases, but it's those soft skills that we really, really have to learn and be really excellent at as veterinarians. We have to be able to, like we said earlier, listen. We have to not be so ready in our heads. We're so didactic so much of the time.
Yeah.
And books, ready to just spit
Right.
out the answers. And people need compassion in those moments. They need a beat. They need for you to take a beat. They need for you to come up with solutions, sometimes off the fly. One thing that I really teach them is good to let pet parents know that we've seen this before. That's like really big to me. Like for instance, like an end of life service. We had
Yeah.
a client recently who had two pets that needed to be, humanely euthanized at the same time.
Uh,
And they were so anxious and nervous about what I would be thinking about them, like, oh, are they just willy-nilly putting down two animals at the same time? So it's like a situation like that where we're saying, you know what? We've had several clients that have had to, have this last wishes service for more than one pet at a time. So you're definitely not alone. Sometimes saying that, oh, you can see them
yeah.
visibly relax
And
and just,
that's not just to say it to them. It's
yep,
actually true, right?
very true.
Like I
Very
have
true.
had, it's not a common thing, but I have had
Mhm.
on more than I would say maybe two or three times where there's been a double pet euthanasia and it does kind of, challenge like, should I be doing this? Should I not? The owners are typically, if they're doing that, always are doing it from the depths of their heart and their feelings, right? About the quality of life of both pets. So I think that that's an amazing thing. The fact that you can train and get students into your network of work is also amazing. And I like that it is college grade, not just veterinarians, right? Because that could actually give some students who are thinking about the industry, do I want to get into this field? That can give them kind of a peek and what you're doing on a virtual platform. And so I really hope really big things for this. Now you mentioned a little bit ago before we wrap up, because you have so much good insight. You mentioned a national program. I'm seeing this telehealth internship as a national program, but I don't want to lose train of thought on what you were mentioning for, I think, pet parents. You have a national program for pet
Yeah.
parents. So tell us more.
Yeah, those interns can actually be a part of this national program for the pet parents too, because again, a lot of it does involve telehealth. Again, you heard me say telehealth, not
Right, right. Not
telemedicine.
telemedicine.
So so if a pet parent in California reaches out, they, read all my disclaimers that say, hey, I'm not your, traditional veterinarian. You should have a traditional veterinarian for your routine care, and you know that this is an adjunct to that, then we're released. We release the hounds. We
Right,
can,
right.
give them all of our holistic care. We can have those interns right on there. I'm not going to say I can just sit back and let the interns run the call, but I mean, they have so much knowledge and the new
Yeah.
stuff that's coming out. I can really learn a lot too. That brings me back to the humble leadership and our continuing education. So the program is our holistic. It's a monitoring program. So it includes a collar that can monitor your dog or cat and get the vital signs, and it can see if there's like spikes or different other things that are happening, and then we can reach out to the pet parent and or their traditional veterinarian if we see those things. But the solutions that we're providing when we see those blips are all holistic. So there may be a dog that, okay, we see they're getting anxious around this time of the day, or something has changed in their family where that nervousness has increased. We got the Shin Calmer on board. We send that out to them. We have the instructions. They know that they can discuss everything that we've discussed with their traditional veterinarian. And we have several different levels of the program as well. So we have one program where it's the collar and a couple of virtual visits with us throughout the month.
Wow.
We've got another program that includes the collar, the virtual visits, and some herbs that are included. So depending on your level of engagement that you would like with myself and my team, you can choose the different packages. And yeah, it's so exciting
Yeah.
to be able to expand our service. Now, of course, we can't do the chiropractic work, or all of the other things. Some of
Yeah.
those still have to stay local, in my Southwest Michigan area.
Yeah. All of that to say kudos to technology. Right? Kudos to technology, because I'm sure 5, maybe even 10 years ago, and beyond, we were not even able to do those. So again, a
That's
trailblazer
right.
in the field, and you found your niche. So
Absolutely.
this is critters and cultures, right? So I do get diverse perspectives, diverse career paths. You talked about, the Veterinary Army Corps, but I also just want to highlight. You mentioned Xavier University, which is a historically Black college that you received your undergraduate degree from. You mentioned Tuskegee University, which is also an HBCU, historically Black college, that you received your veterinary degree from. As a woman of color in veterinary medicine, your story is inspiring, incredibly important. How has your experience navigating this field informed your perspective on the importance of diversity and representation in veterinary medicine?
Yes, I have had a lot. Thank you, first of all, for saying that and for the kudos. Because I
Yeah.
have done a lot of things, and you have to be able to, you know, what Jay-Z say, brush your shoulders off a little
Pressure
bit, give
over
yourself
time. Yeah.
a little props as well.
Yeah.
Um, I I would say that, growing up first being at a Catholic school in elementary school, that I was very much a minority in that. It allowed me to be able to interact well with various cultures and the quote unquote majority culture at that time. And so I feel like I'm a chameleon. I can fit into anywhere. I can make anyone at ease, place anyone at ease, and I think that's how it needs to be within the veterinary world. everyone comes together with this topic of animals and with their pets. You could have this sign for this political person in one yard and this sign for another. And guess what? They're going to meet in the middle of the street with their dogs.
Right.
And that's what I love about it. And so, it can still be a little unsettling sometimes when you get into certain situations, though, I will say. Probably over 10 years ago, I had a very short stint at a large national well-known animal welfare nonprofit. I fill out the application. I was there. And when you first walk in, there's this whole display of the photos of everyone who works there, the CEO and everybody. There were probably 15 to 20 photos up there. It was just a sea of white women, of Caucasian women.
Right.
And, again, I've had my experiences. I've been with everyone. I feel comfortable and confident. But seeing something like that can just really smack you in the face of even the most confident Black professional, right? And so, I didn't last there very long. And, I don't know if it was because of that or if it was because of some mistakes that I made or whatever. I like to, admit when I've made mistakes.
Yeah.
But those kinds of situations remind me that it's ongoing and it's continuous, and we still do need these programs that really focus on us, regardless of what maybe the national laws will say. A lot of the laws have changed recently, and they're not as inclusive of people who were maybe previously disadvantaged. I won't say that anymore. But one of the places that I found a majority of my current interns was at the National Association of Black Veterinarians Conference the past couple of years. They're in their fourth, going on fifth year now, so they're a really new organization.
Yeah.
And they usually meet in New Orleans. And I met a young lady from the University of Michigan, Flint, and she had created a branch of the NABV at the school. They have the student branches of these various associations, and she had created one, not at Michigan State, where there's the actual vet school, but this was at the University of Michigan, where there was no vet school. And so she took it upon herself, this initiative, this oomph that we veterinarians often have to get things going, and she created that. So she created that. She met me at the thing, asked me to be their advisor, and from there, she became the very first intern. Her name was Ebony Walker. Hey, future Dr. Ebony Walker.
Hey, Ebony.
And and she brought, Marissa and Sydney. I've got another intern out in Oregon who I also met at that conference. His name is Asa Strange. And so while the internship is not limited to any race, creed, or color, just as veterinary medicine is not, when people see us, Doc, they're going to see something, they're going to feel a certain way. And if we have open arms, they could come right on in.
Yeah. I love that. We know representation is important, and I'm sure those students have amazing things to say about you, about their program. And I also love the fact that you are inclusive to not just students of color, but students of all races, backgrounds, abilities, sexual orientations. Like you said, was something so profound that you said was that at the end of the day, we all meet in the middle when it comes to our pets, right? That is the one thing, despite our differences, we love our babies. We want to care for them, right? And we're all human. We're all human. There's love there. So I appreciate that. And so where can people find you if they want, pet parents are wanting holistic options, students are wanting internship options, where can people find you?
Without a doubt, drcroom.com. That's DRCROOM.com. And from there, everything branches out. On social media, my handle is Dr. Croom Army Vet. And so you can find me there, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And then the newest spot that you can find me is in school. Okay, that's a little play on words because this new community that I created for holistic pet parents and for future vets is in school.com. So that's spelled Skool, Skool. And when you go in there, yeah, you can search for, me.
SKOOL.
Yes,
Okay.
school.com. It's a new community. And once you get in there, then you can search for holistic pet care and future vet. And that's the name of our community. And yeah, and you probably will see it in the links below as well. But
Yeah.
we'd love to see you in that community. It's for pet parents
Yeah.
who want holistic solutions, and they can communicate with each other as well within the community. But it's also for my pre-veterinary interns to come in and use some of those skills that they've learned within the community to, put on events and share their knowledge and to really build up their resume.
I love that. I love that. One big, amazing, amazing community. So this has been an incredible episode, incredible conversation. We had some connectivity issues right at first, but listen, we got her done. We got her done, right? Before we close, you are, again, a woman of so much experience and so much knowledge. If there was one message that you want the listeners to take away from your journey and or your work in veterinary medicine, one message you want our listeners to know, even if it doesn't relate to veterinary medicine, what would be that one message you want our listeners to know?
Don't be afraid to be different and unique. Don't be afraid to, step out of the box. Like you said earlier, not to just only focus on those things that are welcomed and, that are accepted by everyone. Take a look at those other things that allow more inclusivity. So usually the more different and unique you are, you're going to attract and manifest others that are also unique. And so you can create a business like mine that is full of diversity and uniqueness and everyone coming to the table.
Yeah.
So really embrace your uniqueness and differentness. And that goes for any industry that you're in, not just vet med.
I love it. We heard it from Dr. Croom herself. Dr. Croom, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. Your journey is truly inspiring, and I'm sure our listeners will take away that valuable insight from you and from your experiences. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Critters and Cultures, where we explore the deep connection between humans, animals, and the world around us. Remember that every person has a story, every creature has a story, and every culture has its wisdom. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep discovering the wonders of our shared world.